everybody, and welcome back to another conversation about digital done right. And I'm really excited to be part of this conversation because, one, I'm here with two of my favorite people in conversation, but also because what is digital transformation? I think we throw this term around, and we talked about it in our last episode a little bit, but is digital transformation really what we should be looking for? What are some other things that are happening in the digital environment? We're going to talk about this today. And so before we get too deep into the conversation, let's learn a little bit about who we're having a conversation with today. Marcus, would you like to introduce yourself first to the crew?
Hey, my name is Mark Charalambous. I'm founder and CEO of Backbone. Carlos and I and the group here have just decided to kind of share a little bit of the types of dialogues we're having with our customers and kind of open up a little bit about the issues and some of the challenges and situations we're faced. And we thought it was really a good idea to share some of these learnings with all of you out there.
And we're excited to learn lots today. And Carlos, how about you? Introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carlos. I'm founder and CRO at Backbone, and I'm excited to be here to share this space and some of our experiences through our life in digital. I think, and we hope it could be helpful for you, in the future, if there's something we can, share.
And I think, okay, so just so everybody knows, Carlos tried to sneak this in before we were recording, but I'm bringing it back because there's a really important piece of the conversation here. And lots of people talk about digital transformation, right? That word has kind of been a phrase now that we've been throwing around for, 10 years, maybe more, probably in your guys' experience longer than that. And we have stats like 70% of digital transformations don't work. You're like, well, that's great. But like, what really is a digital transformation? And really, is that even the conversation we should be having, or are there other pieces of the conversation that are important? So I want to start with something you talked about, Carlos, before we started, which is this concept of becoming digital first. And so let's just define that to begin with. And Carlos, you brought it up, so you get to answer the question first. What does it mean to become digital first?
Okay, thank you, Tracy. I think becoming digital first is it's a goal. It's a goal that organizations should be working towards in the next couple of years. We understand that as users become digital, and as users and clients and all the different actors or people that interact with organizations really want things to be easier, faster, simpler, and have access to everything in a few clicks, be it on the web or on our mobile phone or wherever you might be interacting. Organizations are facing a big challenge in becoming digital themselves, like fully digital. So I think it's a vision of the future of organizations. Really, becoming digital first is putting digital above everything as the driver of the way in which companies connect and manage their business. By using technology completely as the main enabler of that interaction in a way. So
Yeah.
it's and that's what I think. What do you think, Mark? Just to get started on that. I know you have your.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. Digital first is something that I think is tough for businesses to wrap their heads around, because they're obviously starting from a not digital first place, and they need to sort of move into this new uncharted territory where they kind of have to figure out what digital first actually means. And I think that's kind of the meat on the bone here, what we're trying to talk about, right?
So I have a question mark on
Sure.
that. Is there like one central version of what becoming digital first looks like, or is this something that every business has to really explore for themselves?
I think obviously every business needs to explore this for themselves, and we're talking about business, in a very broad term. I mean, it could be anybody from, a car leasing business to a fintech to a flower shop to anything. So it's a very broad spectrum of use cases and dynamics, right? I think for me, when I think of digital first, I think of it in from the perspective of how do we get into a position where digital becomes um, no longer a source of anxiety or a question mark, but becomes one of your key strengths. And I think, we see this in the software businesses that are sort of, at incredibly rapid pace right now, sort of redefining what it means to be in business out there. And they're obviously digital first because that's their DNA. But how
Right.
does the rest of the world transition to be in that same position and actually transfer, how they're dealing with their capital and all that stuff and how they're doing business into really feeling as if digital is their greatest superpower rather than this giant question mark that is the source of a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of things that are happening out there. Businesses that are technology first, I think, are really struggling to
Struggling.
figure out
Yeah.
how they even handle this problem. Who do they
Hmm.
hire? Do they hire people? Do they work with consultants? Who's giving them the right information? Everything that's happening in AI right now, I think, is creating a ton of excitement, but again, a ton of anxiety because you may just have come through 2 years of doing a digital transformation exercise or moving down that path, and then all of a sudden, bam, AI
AI shows
shows up. What does that mean?
up.
Did we spend the last 2 years doing the wrong thing? So it's very complex, right? And I think that's the point of this conversation is to sort of give a wider audience than just, let's say, the potential customers we're talking to, a window into these conversations, maybe before they've made a buying decision, and maybe they're not even ready to because they don't fully understand the context, and they maybe want to find alignment with the market and understand that they're not alone out there.
Yeah, and I think this
Mm.
is I really love how you talked about digital anxiety because I feel
Yeah,
like
that's a
this
good term.
is
That's a
something that
good
a
term.
lot of people, it's a really
Yeah.
good term. A lot of
Yes.
people, because that's how people experience it, right? And we can talk about big topics like digital transformation. And if you guys missed the first episode, go back. We covered a whole bunch of things in that episode in the realm of digital transformation as well. But I think this is really the heart of the matter is that digital is either causing you stress and anxiety and you don't
Mhm.
see how it's aligned with your business and your people, or digital has become a superpower. And so let's go back to Carlos on this one. If you are in the state, so I'm in a business and right now what I'm feeling is digital anxiety. What's one of the first things that I could do that could help me start moving in the right direction?
Well, I think the first thing is realizing that you have to take action in reality. Like that. That's really important. I think that this anxiety that you mentioned comes. It's similar to like the anxiety you get when you have debts that are unpaid or unresolved in a way. And the way back there, businesses and organizations know and understand that there's a debt and that it's growing and that it's accumulating with the years, and they can easily see where are at by comparing their business in whatever industry or segment it might be to other businesses in the same landscape and seeing what they're doing. It's really in the end a competition, right? It's as Mark says, it's like a Formula One race that's happening out there where you're actually head on competing with the other players in your industry. There's different levels of digitalization, of course, as we know, in different industries. And what's important is to really understand where's your industry at, and where are you, in comparison to your main competitors in this industry. Really, really keep a close eye on what's happening and an understanding if you are ahead, if you are, in the same place everyone is, or if you're really starting to fall behind. I think that's I would say it's key to actually understanding uh, where your industry is going, where the disruptors are coming in. It's very different in every market. If you're in North America, if you're in Europe, if you're in South America, we see very different behaviors regionally, and I think the main thing there is to actually stay ahead of the game in your region. Like don't compare yourself to the rest of the world. That's going to create more anxiety still because it might not be necessary. But in your specific market, having a good understanding of what's happening with your competitors and really
Yeah.
keeping a good eye on them.
Although, and what's interesting
Mhm.
about what you're saying there is as a starting point, I think that's really great. I think one of the one of the I think one of the rewards I think of getting this right is that this digital transformation or this digital first approach, it's going to take some time, but I think done right, it actually opens up the whole world. So those are the kinds of stakes that start to, I think, become clearer how you can really reinvent your business. And we're seeing this, I think especially the younger generation coming in really without any technical debt. I think about when we started and the tools that we had, good, 15, 20 years ago, we literally had to build everything from the ground up. It was a very different market where as a
Mhm.
service provider, it was almost as if there was a little bit more freedom to create because there was a blank sheet of paper in front of everybody.
Right,
Right
right.
now. And so,
Too many options.
fast forward 10 years, a lot of those businesses have gone through that digital transformation and tried to build different things, and use technologies that didn't persist or didn't endure. And this is something I talk about a lot. I mean, the cost of doing these things wrong, apart from ending up with a product or, an outcome that has entropy sort of falls apart over time, is the opportunity cost of all the good human capital and the intellect that was invested in order to deliver that thing that ended up failing. You could have done everything right, and you ended up in a situation where you are
Mm.
today, where the market's evolved so much. There's so many tools, and now you get this younger generation coming along, which have been educated, I think, all the way through high school, even university, with the stuff that we basically have had to, work with over the years with really little, very little background. And they're starting with these incredible tools. They're coming out of university where AI and all these things are sort of their starter. That's where they're starting from, right?
Right. That's the norm now. Yeah.
So that's really interesting to me as well, because it's like, companies that are almost starting out with fresh capital who don't have 20 years experience are all of a sudden now much lighter,
Ahead of the curve. Right.
uh, and can start their first approach at it. So I think this is contributing to the anxiety out there, because I think
Anxiety.
more established business people who've got you know customers and processes and connective tissue that you can't just throw away and start fresh. How do you bridge that gap is another source of this sort of anxiety. And so I think what would be interesting is to sort of figure out, like, what are some of the things you can do to sort of parallel path some of those things and sort of get into this new track while respecting some of your existing, I don't want to call it baggage, but processes and inertia, and make this
Yeah. Capital.
switcheroo. And
In a
what
way,
are the
like.
things you're looking for? What are your north? What does your North Star sort of need to be from our POV, so that you're just, again, and this is touches a little bit on what we spoke about the last time, about just making sure that you're going to the right destination. It's not
Right.
about speed. Speed's part of it, but going really fast down the wrong road, not that effective, right? So how do you make sure you're on the right road? What is that North Star? What do you look like when you're done? What can you do when you're done? How have you been liberated when you're done? And how do all of these sort of key decisions in the process give you that ability to be flexible and to turn digital into that superpower that, if you get right now, really frees you to be much more nimble and take advantage of these things that are happening, such as AI and all that kind of stuff. So they're not competitive forces, but they're stacking energies right into a positive flywheel, right?
So, okay, I think there's an
Hmm.
interesting, you said the word done a few times there,
Mm-hmm.
Mark.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, you're never
so,
done.
well, and
Yeah.
see, so this is what I'm wondering, right? Because I
Right,
feel like
right.
when we think about maybe the traditional definition of a digital transformation, we
Mm-hmm.
do have a finish date, right? We have a scope, we have a due date, we have a finish. And then when I think about it from this concept of becoming digital first, there isn't really a
Goal.
done, because
No.
we
Right.
get AI and then there's something new, right, Carlos?
No, it's no, it's an ongoing goal, and I think what's interesting is when you think about it, like when you think, okay, how can I use technology? How can I use digital? How can I use AI? To move my business forward. In the end, you're not really worried about digitalizing what you have. The question is open for you to start thinking, what does my digital company look like once it's digitized? So it opens big questions that actually, make you think about your current business model, make you really start doing proper, thinking and ideation and innovation inside your organization to actually, transform your company into that digital first company that's actually really, you know, changing their business model in some cases to actually, leverage on the power of technology in a way. So it's no longer, a matter of like, how do I digitalize my company? It's like, what from my company can actually become now uh, IP. What part of my process is actually unique to us, and by creating the digital tools to solve a problem specifically for my company, I might be solving a problem for everyone else at the same time. So
Mm-hmm.
it's that transformation of digital first is actually how every business starts becoming a tech company in the end. No, once they
Yeah.
Yeah.
once they
Yeah.
bring down their yeah. What do you
I
think
love
about
that
that, Mark?
concept, because one of the other phrases you brought up before we started recording, Carlos trying to sneak in all this good stuff that you want to record, is digital evolution, right? And I think you just
Mhm.
gave a really great example of what does it look like to look at where are we today? What could it look like in the future with this tech that's available? And what does it look like to even build into our future processes this
Exactly.
openness for evolution, right? Knowing that, like, sure, I mean, AI has kind of been in the conversation for a while, but it's hit really hard in the past year and a half. And
Yeah.
so knowing that technology is changing at that rate, how do we build into our mindsets? How do we build into our process this knowledge that this isn't a done activity? This is us changing our business into a digital first organization.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, and I think mindset is the key. Because in reality, this is not a project. There's no beginning. There's no end. It's just an attitude towards business that every organization has to start really embracing. It's like, we are going digital, and we're going fully digital, and there's no end. Like, even as we talk about AI, we still haven't seen anything, right? Like, there's AI is not yet really truly evident on our interactions or organizations. Next year, it's going to be really different. But I think becoming digital first, yeah, it's a mindset. I think it's a mindset where
Mm-hmm.
the whole organization has to start breathing and living, under the idea that this is an ongoing
Yeah.
endeavor. Yeah.
And yeah, and another thing that I think is really important about what you're saying though is that mindset. We can all have mindsets for a day or a week or a month, right? And I think this is one of the big challenges about this whole transition is that we've been through it for the better part of a decade or two, depending on the business, depending on the maturity of the business. So there's a little bit of I think what happened in the past sort of weighing down what will happen this time, what makes this time different. So I think that's a hurdle that businesses need to overcome in terms of how they bring in this mindset, because surely there have been mindsets in the past that have maybe not resulted in the right outcomes. So I think that's a really important one. It's just like how what do we do differently this time, right? In terms of the approach that we take, the way that we bring our team into these conversations that builds a longer term faith or a longer term vision that we're building on the right foundations, that this is going to actually cross that line. And that I think the
Mhm.
most important thing for me is, and sort of what we've spent many years obsessing about, is change. How do you do this in such a way that change is a good thing, and that you've
Mhm.
engineered for change in your technology stack, and that that is sort of, I think, one of the main foundational pieces that need to be there, because it's impossible to get it right without you. I mean, the whole idea of sprints and thinking that way is to, fail fast, measure, go back, do things again, see what's happening. Oh, oops, look, 6 months later, there's a whole bunch of new stuff that's happening that we didn't factor into our approach 6 months ago because it wasn't there yet. And that's just going to get faster and faster, and more of it's going to start flowing at organizations that they have to digest and figure out how they continue to solve this without sort of hitting a wall and realizing, oh, we're here again. We're at a cul-de-sac, right? Where now we have to go back and throw the baby out with the bathwater and start again. So I think for me, that's my main source of inspiration
Hmm.
in terms of how I look at what we build and how we deal with what we implement for customers. Is it needs to, at its very foundational level, be abstractable and something that is flexible, and that has to be the core deliverable. Like, it has to be about change, right? You have to be able to get 80% down the road and go back 5% and make really not foundational, but meaningful changes. And the foundation that you're building on needs to be able to accommodate for that at all levels. So that's kind of a big one. And I think that is what everyone knows they need to figure out. They don't know what the answer to that question is. And that's, I think, a big part of what this is about, and talking about how we solve that problem, right? And what
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
deliver to our customers to make that less problematic and more of a superpower, right?
Well, and I
yeah, that's a
think,
really really good point. Like I
yeah,
would
in
like
my
to add, like,
experience, okay, yeah, go,
yeah,
Carlos.
no, no,
You
I would
go.
like to add that in reality, like people know where they want to go, and there's all these great ideas and all these different visions for how businesses could actually evolve and become stronger through technology. But once you really go in and start understanding what's happening, you know far from technology being an accelerator, it's really, in most cases, the blocker that's slowing you down in a way. So even the ideas of where you want to go might be on the table, but how to make it happen, how to get there, and how to overcome the challenges that technology poses is a bigger problem to solve in a way. So more than
Yeah, and I
technology
feel
really
like
accelerating.
I
Hmm.
mean, this is my experience before with like even the mindsets, the technology, right? When all these things are coming together, that it can feel like I had a systems architect who once described it to me as spaghetti. Right? So there's like a whole bunch of pieces of things, but the pieces aren't actually connected to each other. And so now we have this like AI module, and we have this, and we have like the person who had the original mindset who's now left the organization, and all of this like really ends up being a like jumbled mess. And
Mm-hmm.
so like Mark, you kind of hinted to this, so I want to go back to it from a technology perspective. What are the things we need to talk about, and what are the things we need to know to make sure that we're not just like collecting a bowl of spaghetti in terms of our digital stack? Because I can assume that that leads to more anxiety instead of less anxiety. What are the questions we need to ask from a tech perspective to avoid that?
Well, that's a big question. So, first of all, that bowl of spaghetti you're talking about is technical debt. That's the thing. And I think the difficulty, let's say if you're at the executive level and you're trying to run a business that's not, you're not, your main business isn't technology. So you've got maybe a smattering of technical people. And just because that person is the most technical person in your organization doesn't mean that they have the knowledge to architect software that's going to end up lasting 10 years. So again, the first question is, what are you building? If you're building a website, great, you're building a website. And then you're adding this piece and you're adding that piece, and you might have the wherewithal within the company to solve these micro problems or smaller scale pieces of a larger timeline, right? And sort of reacting to things, right? And again, there's tons of different tools. So you know, you adopt a tool here and a tool there, and then you're doing all this integration. But the approach, how you're doing the integration and all that stuff, you start to get into some pretty architectural land there that if you don't do these things right, you are building that bowl of spaghetti. And then let's say that thought leader slash person in the organization leaves, whatever that was now gets handed to somebody else, and you have another person or another group of people looking at it going, wow, how do we support this thing? And then you get into that first sort of existential question, do we throw it away or do we keep working on it? That's a tough question to answer, because throwing it away is a pretty large, possibly a budgetary decision, et cetera, et cetera. You don't have a ton of faith or confidence at that stage whether throwing it away and putting something different is actually going to get you into a better position, right? So you tend to, I would suggest that most organizations tend to try to do both, which extends into a long project and then keeping something spaghetti-like working, which means probably adding more spaghetti to it, et cetera, et cetera. And at some point, this is the digital anxiety. This is the, oh my God, what about our competition? What are they using? How is their digital experience evolving? Why is it is way better than ours? What are we doing wrong? And so that problem comes in a million different flavors, right? And sizes, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that what we're trying to do is really make sure that when we come on, we're delivering something that really fully manages that entire problem in the form of a technology stack, so that in an organization, you don't have to figure that 80% of the problem out. In our mind, it's something that should be abstractable across the entire industry of anybody who's connecting with digital through a browser or through any mobile device or through any mobile, or rather through any human interface, right? So that's really where, we're really focused on how do you capture what an organization needs to do at that layer where the human connects, and abstracting that 80% of what just should be amazing architecture that is forward looking, that has been deeply thought about for the last 20 years. So it's not reactionary. That's our foundation, and that's how we sort of try work with our customers to sort of really get them to understand that that's just the way that cloud did the same thing for
Right.
hardware, and this ongoing battle of always having to replace stuff and servers dying and all that kind of stuff. The cloud, it took people a while to sort of get over that line, and even the most security conscious folks right now are realizing that it's a quid pro quo between what you perceive you're sacrificing with security with the operational efficiencies that you get. They're both and can be existential threats. So which one's the worst boogeyman? And they're coming over the line. So you're seeing even the biggest companies in the world adopting cloud, whereas 5-10 years ago they were still like, no way, we need to be in control of that. But it ended up becoming, I think, a larger liability than the upside of it promised, right? I think this is the same here, right? With instead of having non-technology first companies trying to architect solutions that aren't their core business, and I would say are going to get wrong most of the time. I think that perspective on the market is changing, or opening up to realizing that they need to understand that buying that as a
service.
platform, as a service that connects all these different things and allows them to be an amazing digital experience to their customers that is flexible, nimble, able to change quickly on a dime, et cetera, as part of the service, is a necessary step, right? And
Right.
those are the people that we're tending to, or rather, that's where we're seeing the biggest change, is
Right.
that mind shift that Carlos is talking about. That's where they're more ready to sort of look at it from a different perspective, and not try to do it all in house, right?
So I have one final question, because we could talk about this for a very long time, but one final question for today. Carlos, earlier on in the conversation, you mentioned the word disruptors. And I feel like the tech industry has this kind of disruption vibe that goes about in it. But then, Mark, you talked about flower shops and things like this who would probably not have identified as digital before, and maybe have not identified as a disruptor before. And so when we think about this from a disruption perspective or a digital evolution perspective, is there something we need to ask ourselves? Is there a question we could ask ourselves to say, like, maybe I haven't historically been the leader in flower shops. I'm just going to use that example because we brought it up. But now I could be the digital leader of flowers. Like, what are some of the things you've seen your clients asking that kind of help them move through the fear of being a disruptor?
Okay.
I'll give you a hint.
I don't ask. This isn't where you get the easy questions, folks.
No,
This
no,
is
no,
where
no,
you
no.
get the
It's
hard.
good. It's good.
COVID really helped. I mean, I'll poke
Yes.
Carlos along with that. I mean, COVID was the thing that really just gave everyone a huge, big, slap. It's kind of
People
like
can't be in person to get their flowers,
you
but
have to
yet they
jump
still
off.
want their flowers.
Yeah, it
How
was
do they get them?
existential. You survive through this, or you're going to die, or you do something different, and that really gave a shot of adrenaline into I think the digital world, right?
Right, and I think staying with, say, the flower example, which is interesting. It's, the first thing we think is, like, can I buy a product online? And I think we've gone through that already, right? Having an e-commerce and being able to buy a product online, sure, that already happened basically everywhere. To most people, if you're not selling online yet, then you're way behind where you should be, right? I guess that the next question is, like, what am I selling online and how am I selling online? Do I sell a product, or am I actually opening, the world of possibilities, allowing my clients to customize the way they buy that product? And I think that's where we're heading, right? It's like, am I buying a flower bouquet, or am I actually building up my whole flower box, or am I actually buying a subscription, or am I actually, like, and as you go into these variations, you're starting to redefine the business model in itself, because the product that you sell, it becomes different now. So it goes from, if I can offer customization, what has to happen in the back for us to be able to deliver customization, and if our clients really want always something that's now out of the ordinary, different, special, like, uh, you sort of like have all the systems in place in most companies in the back end, like they have their ERPs, their CRMs, their systems, they have everything running. They've been running the businesses using technology for a while. But how do we really leverage on those systems to change the experience, like the user interacting with the company? How can I offer, a way to make things easier, faster, and more, custom? I think we want to be, we want to buy products that we can define ourselves, that we can basically, everyone's looking for that special thing that can be changed and customized. We don't want, you know, the same every day. So that's a big opportunity. Not only, I mean, we're seeing that across all the industries, but I really like the flower example, because it takes a lot to actually just take, a product that was a box of flowers before, and actually now offer it as, select every single flower in your box and create your own box, and
Yeah, yeah. And
it
there's
goes through
there's
it.
operational
Mhm.
challenges there too. So and just on that point, just before we wrap this up, there's a lot of what I see a lot is a lot of younger people wanting to get online businesses started, right? And so again, there's a ton of really great digital tools out there that'll let you spin up what looks like a full online business. The problem is that, from going at it from that side, that's actually kind of the easy part, because it's pretty easy to make something look like um, it is X, Y, or Z. It's on the delivery side. It's the actual business fully functioning. That's why I'm finding it pretty interesting with some people I'm talking about, is that they've managed to get your quick Shopify site up and all this kind of stuff, and quote unquote create a business. But actually, that's in many ways that's the easy part if you don't have the operational side done, right?
Right.
So on one hand, we're talking about all this digital anxiety where people have real businesses, and running a real business is a lot more than people expect, right? There's a ton in there, right? But it gets minimized because, oh, let's get something online and we'll start a business. Running the actual business is hard, right? Making people work beautifully together, having everything sort of work like a symphony, and getting a customer the thing that you promised on time, that aligns with their needs and their priorities at scale is actually much harder than building the software layer. So that's just a glimmer of
Right.
hope here, that if you have an existing business that actually works, that is actually the hard part. The digital piece, if done right, can obviously transform your business. But I think that having the business in the first place is the harder thing to sort of
Right.
to actually make work. So I would say, to leave off on a positive note, people that have businesses, let that anxiety sort of drop a little bit, because I think the anxiety of realizing that you've got a great online funnel that you can't deliver on is actually maybe possibly worse, and actually leverages, I think, a lot of these bricks and mortar businesses to actually become quite useful in a broader ecosystem. So that, I think that's a whole other conversation around
The opportunity.
the opportunity for bricks and mortar businesses. But yeah, I think,
Totally.
there's just so much to unpack here. And I think the main thing for me is just that if existing businesses who are looking to do this properly, want to do it properly, what are the things to look for, right? And I think that that's what we really are trying to dig into in this process, and what what we deliver to our customers in the form of software, platform, fully cohesive platform, as well as a service layer or a partner network. Because we're not the right fit for every company, right? We may be really good for a company that's got a really big need, and our team can really get deployed on something really well, versus someone who's just getting started. It might be not the right fit for us. So who are the partners that you can work with, but that you abstract that risk by using a platform that's going to integrate all this stuff together? So it's, a lot more to talk about, but this is sort of the start of it.
Also,
Yeah.
the word abstract came up a whole bunch, so I feel like we need to talk
Well-
about that. I've been taking notes, and this is part of this series, folks, and why it's not just one show, but a series, is that there are a lot of different layers at play here. And when you're asking the right questions about all of the layers and looking at this there's a mindset layer, right? What does this look like for digital first? Are we actually that? Are we not? There's an evolution layer about new things are going to come in and things are going to change. There's a technology layer, and there's a people layer, and there's a user experience layer. And when we simplify digital transformation too much, it becomes a little bit dangerous. And so what we're here to share with you all is are these the depth in this conversation that we need to have, and the importance of having those conversations with a partner who knows what they're talking about. So as we wrap up for today, Carlos and Mark, where are the best place for people to contact you if they are curious about any of the things we heard in conversation today? Carlos first.
Tracy, I think we can put our contacts here in the channel or through our webpage at backbone.digital. You can always reach out to us, and we're happy to take not only questions, but to invite you to participate in this conversation. I mean, our main goal here is to really share our experiences, our day-to-day experiences, and in a way be able to help out a little bit in these exciting times of digital transformation and evolution. And we hope what we share here is of value for you at some point when you're making these tough decisions.
Yeah. So you can get a hold of us on backbone.digital, or you can go to expressia.com and check out what we keep alluding to on the platform side. And if you have any questions, reach out to us directly, or get a hold of us through the contact forms on the websites, and we'd love to meet with you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much
you.
for all of your insights today.
Thank you, Tracy.
So many great
Thank you,
things.
Tracy.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Until next time, are you doing digital right?
See you. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Ciao.
Thanks, you guys. Bye-bye.